Welcome to the Best Damn Podcast. This is your host, Jill Lagan, CEO of the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce. In each episode, we will highlight what makes Boulder City, home of the Hoover Dam, the ideal place to operate your small business, explore world-class tourism attractions, and discover why we are the perfect place to live and unwind.
I'm so excited today to introduce everybody to Mr. Roger Devine. He's a wonderful partner in the schoolauction.net program, and I cannot wait to learn a little bit more about what School Auction is. Welcome, Roger. Thank you for joining me.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you, Jill, for the opportunity.
So please tell me more about this. I feel like this is something that our community really could utilize, and maybe even it's been a black hole for a while with this particular programming. Share what it is that you do and why you love it.
Oh, so what we did, this is as much a mission as it is a business or a program. It's something we started about 18 years ago. I was a PTA president at the time, and PTAs at lots of schools need to do fundraisers. We don't tend to adequately fund education in our country, and so parents have to supplement. And this is a common thing. This happens across the country. And in the place where I live, in Portland, Oregon, we were kind of fans of doing fundraising auction galas at our schools. They are a common type of fundraiser to run for schools throughout the country. But when I went and when I was PTA president, and I went looking around for how we might be able to raise more money at our fundraising event for the PTA, I realized that the tools that were available were extremely rudimentary. And this was not a huge problem in that you could always fill in with more volunteers. You can always just throw bodies at a problem, right? When you're doing a volunteer fundraiser, and you can just burn everybody out that you can reach out to, right? Just find as many people as you can and just burn them out. The problem is that you burn people out, and then they're not available for next year, and they're not available for the year after that. So we set out to build a system that would help make the teams that put on these fundraising events much more efficient with their time, give them tools that would allow them to do a lot more within a lot fewer hours. If you think about it, we want to respect the volunteers that are sticking their necks out and doing things they don't have to do in order to make our communities better. And so let's give them better tools. Let's bring this out there. So we developed a whole platform for this that includes things like ticket sales, and includes things like a bidding platform where people can place bids online if they want to, or they can do paper bid sheets, or they can do all sorts of things. We've expanded this out to help people with golf tournaments, et cetera, other types of fundraisers, thons, capital campaigns, and the like. But for the most part, the reason that this is a different thing than many other things that kind of look like it is because of the target audience. I am less interested in helping the American Red Cross or the American Cancer Society. I respect them. What they do is amazing. We need them. However, there's a lot of people that are available to help those organizations. The organizations that don't tend to get as much assistance tend to be the grassroots nonprofits, the ones on the ground in a specific community that are handling the needs of a particular community. So obviously the style of community nonprofit that we started out with were PTAs. That's a community nonprofit organization. Got a very small area that they're concerned with, a small group of people they're trying to enhance the lives of. But this translates out. There might be a local humane society that's not part of one of the big national chains in your area, and they got to keep the doors open too. So this is what we take out and we provide to organizations that just need a little bit of help there.
So what you're saying is, if I were to implement these types of tools, that people would not be afraid to answer the phone when they see my number come up, because I won't burn out my volunteers.
Exactly. The idea is you're going to be able to go out to a volunteer. You're going to be able to give them a job that is bounded You're asking them for 100 hours of volunteer time, or you're asking them for 50 hours of volunteer time. And you've got a specific thing that you need to ask them to do. And you're not asking them to do everything. And furthermore, you're not asking them to organize everything.
Right.
You've got the structure that they can work within. And so when they see your number pop up on their iPhone, they're like, oh, okay, I don't have to run screaming.
Yes, it does happen. Share a little bit with me. First of all, before we get into how it actually works,
Yeah.
give me a little bit of the history. So you guys are your partner in this. And so you have other partners that helped you begin this. And it's all online. You don't come into a community. It's all, you can do everything right there from that wonderful desk.
Absolutely. We absolutely can. We're going to provide, at the end of the day, what we provide is software, a software platform for the organization to use to plan, manage, and run their events.
Okay.
That's what you pay for when you get in business with us. When you decide to use our software, that's what you get for the money you put out there. But you also get more, because most people that are going to put on a fundraising event, most people that are going to volunteer to do one of these, especially for a grassroots organization in a local community, are not taking on a job to do this forever. They're taking on a job to do this year. I'm going to do this bit. I'm here for this bit here. So generally, they know less about how to conduct an effective fundraiser than, say, I do. Because I've done 100 of these
Right.
myself, and I've helped tens of thousands of organizations run them. I
Yes.
literally have done hundreds of events myself, though.
But they know their community, and an event is always different in every community, right?
Absolutely. So they get to design their event. They get to design how it's going to be. It needs to resonate culturally with the group that's going to be attending. So when I'm talking to my customers, I can say, I'll give you some generic ideas here. And I've got a lot of data too as to what works and what doesn't work. But I'll tell my customers, I'll give you a generic overview here. You need to put the filter on that says, this is the community. These are the 150 to 300 people that I can get into a room to do this fundraiser with, or these are the 500 people that are on my email list that I can bring to an online fundraiser. And they get to decide, they know who those people are, so they get to design the event to resonate with those people. We just give them the tools to execute it.
That's awesome. And so you're the support to the investment, and you know that investment pays off, and that sounds like, like you've been able to perform.
One of the things that I really believe is that even though I'm not charging for consulting, and we don't ever charge for any kind of consulting or support or whatever, if I have something that I can contribute that will help an organization make more money, then when they reevaluate the tool at the end of the year and decide whether it was worth it or not, chances are likely that they're going to say yes, because we were not only able to give them a tool that they could use, but we were able to give them information that they were able to turn into wisdom there. And
that's the value, your wisdom, your behind the scenes knowledge, your institutional information that you've had for forever because of your experiences. We can't get that from AI. AI is like,
well, it's really hard. And because these fundraising auctions, especially addressing the AI part of this here, fundraising auctions are not a large enough cultural phenomenon to have generated the volume of training data that the AIs would need to ingest in order to be really good at it. When you think about what AI is going to be good at answering, it's going to be good at answering the most common questions that get asked because there's the most training data on those questions. Fundraising auctions are a weird thing. We're off in our little niche here. I think there's maybe 10,000 people in the United States that really pay attention to what fundraising auctions are doing on a regular basis. Most of the rest of us, once the event is over, we're ready to move on to something else.
Yeah.
But we got 20 years worth of not only experience ourselves, the sort of soft stuff that builds the intuitions that helps you drive stuff like this. We've also got data. I've got a data like 20 years worth of auction data in it. So I can tell you, say, the top 5 things that work in a live auction for churches in 2024.
Wow. Yeah.
You know?
So you're our AI.
Yeah, we've got the data. We've got the data, and we're out here and we're ready to help.
I love that. So now I'm in love with this concept. I want to work with you. tell me first steps. We've now signed our contract. What are we doing?
Okay. After you sign the contract and you're going to be working with you, we're going to set up credit card processing. You certainly want to be able to take credit cards for payment at your event. I'm going to show you how to do all of the features regarding collecting, cataloging, and merchandising any items you might include in an auction. We're going to lump that under item management. There's a variety of tools there and a variety of things you need to accomplish.
Okay.
And then there's a whole huge list of tools if you're doing a live event, if it's not purely online. There's a whole huge list of a bunch of tools for managing your guest flow at the experience. My favorite analogy is that a fundraising auction is like a department store, only it's only open for 6 hours a year. And people are coming in and there's a whole bunch of different things that they can do. And there's a bunch of people moving around on the floor and they're engaging in different ways and they're making donations in different ways and they're doing different things here. And you've got to manage all of those people. You've got to get them in. You've got to get them seated for dinner. You've got to get them appropriately lubed up for your live auction. And then you have to get them out of the event. You need to get them checked out and out of the event while the guests are still happy. If you make your guests stand around too long at the end of the evening, they get cranky.
Yeah.
They're sweaty. They've been dancing for a couple of hours. They're a little bit drunk. They're ready for this night to be over. And you're making them stand in a line so that you can make them write a check to give you money. Not a great look. All of the tools regarding how we sell our guest a ticket, collect their information. Maybe we need to collect a meal choice or something. Move them through check-in, move them through the evening, sell them things, collect their money, give them receipts, send them home while they still got a smile on their face so that next year when we ask them to buy tickets to attend the next year's event, they're willing to do. They're
Right.
not unhappy about how last year ended.
They had a great experience and that's all they remember is the great experience.
Exactly.
I love that. Okay, so very good. So the management of it all. And so now I'm realizing this isn't just for schools. Like you said before, it could be a capital campaign if it's done online. It could be a fundraiser for our hospital foundation. There's a lot of different opportunities that this software program really can fit into, and you helped design that.
Yeah, I was one of the founding partners. Yeah, and I'm very proud of the work we've done. I would point out that there is an organization based in Colorado, not in Boulder, but in Colorado, that we work with a lot on a regular basis, and that's Young Life. The Young Life chapters at various high schools and things are not PTAs, but it's the same idea. They got their own sports clubs or their own interest clubs. For Young Life, it's about fellowship and communion, and they get out there and they get together and do service projects and they raise money to do those things. So they like doing fundraising auctions, just the PTA would.
Very good. I love the idea that really the community knows their community best. They'll know what prizes are going to work. They'll know
Absolutely.
auction items
Absolutely.
to swing. But then you've got the data to say, just FYI, at a church auction in the last year, we had these things were the highest raised auction items. I love that. That's great. Okay, so now I've got a general sense of what schoolauction.net is. I'm loving the concept. Help me be comfortable with getting involved with your organization by teaching us a little bit more about you. This is our favorite part of our podcast interviews. And can you give me an idea of an aha moment that you might have had sometime in your career as you have been working with this? I would imagine you have alleviated a lot of burden from individual organizations as they're doing these fundraisers.
Absolutely. We've alleviated a lot of burden there. I think that one of the aha moments that I had concerned an auction that I chaired. I was in charge of running the event. It's an occupational hazard. And I was doing it for my Rotary Club.
Oh.
And my Rotary Club does an annual fundraiser every year. And they had never included in their annual fundraisers an element that I had picked up from our customers, a thing that you can do at your fundraising event. And these were, or a thing you can sell. And these were something we call sign-up parties or easel parties or pay-to-play parties. They're things where the item donor is donating this, that some point in the future, they're going to hold a party or they're going to do something fun. And you're going to want to be part of it. So if you want to be part of it, you go ahead and at the auction, sign up to go. And there's a fee per head. And it's a fixed price thing.
That's cool.
Yeah, they're great. They come out of schools. They tend to be called things like teacher features because a lot of times this is how teachers will contribute to a given auction. They're wonderful because they're fixed price items. This is really important because unless you have fixed price items, if everything is biddable at your event, the people who have the most fun are the people with the fattest wallets. And we need to be a little bit more equitable about that. We need to make sure that the guy who comes to the event with $100 can spend $100. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Even if he can't spend any more. They're good for that. But then here's the aha moment. I donated a particular sign-up party to my Rotary Club for that year. Not only sharing the auction, I'm also donating the items. It's like you get drawn into doing all of it. But I'm donated a pig roast. I have a lovely setup for roasting pigs in my backyard, little pigs. And I can accommodate a bunch of guests, and it was a lot of fun. And we did this the first year for the Rotary Club, and a bunch of Rotarians came by, and we had a great time. It was a lovely time. We did it on July 4th. It was amazing. We all watched fireworks afterwards. It was great. The next year, when we were planning our fundraiser, when we made the initial announcements, people came up to me right away and said, when can I buy tickets? I need to make sure I can sign up for the pig roast again. And this was like, okay. Okay. Like the items can draw the attendance on an annual basis here.
I love
We're
that.
really excited about the one-time things you can buy, the trip to Bali or whatever. But these perennial items can provide a baseline of support every year. They may not be your biggest money makers, but if they're going to bring people into the room, wow, now you make money off of them by having them there in the room for the other things you're doing.
That is awesome. I love that. And so obviously sorry that I'm hooked on this, but this is brand new and I'm loving this concept. So then you determine, okay, I actually have room for 30 people. So only allowed 30 people at $100 to be able to sign up. So then you create FOMO.
A little bit of FOMO.
Yeah. And so I am loving that. What a special concept. And then you as the donor, you provided the food and that.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of fun. I'll give you another aha moment that I was at an event and everybody had the aha moment at the same time. And this was not a good aha moment. So I'll give you one of these, but it's funny.
Okay.
There's a game that can get played at fundraising events. This game is called Heads or Tails. It's a coin flip game, but you ask everybody who's going to play the game to purchase an opportunity to play the game. If you're going to be in a raffle, you got to buy a raffle ticket. If you're going to play this game, you got to buy an opportunity to play. Right. And generally, this game is called Heads or Tails. You know, what happens is if you can play, the auctioneer asks you to stand up. Everybody stands up. Then he asks you to put your hand on your heads or your hand on your tail. Your own tail only. And then he flips a coin. And everybody who's got their hands in the right place gets to stay in the game. And everybody who doesn't gets to sit down and they're done. Unless they bought more than one chance to play the game, in which case they just move on to the next opportunity. Usually this is done by selling Mardi Gras beads as opportunities to play the game. So I'd ask you how many times you want to play. You'd say 3. I'd hand you over 3 strings of Mardi Gras beads. If you lost, you had your hands on your heads and it came to tails, you could take off one of your strings of beads and you could stay in the game.
That is cool. Tell me how this goes wrong.
How this goes wrong is when one person in your auction reads the room and decides, oh, all I have to do is buy 100 sets of beads.
And so they're just constantly winning and
they're going to outlast everybody else by buying. And the problem with this is not that you're selling a lot of beads. That's a little bit of money making. The problem is that all of the other guests who wanted to play the game on a fair basis get ticked off. They get angry, which is not what you want them to be feeling while they're standing in the middle of your fundraising auction. So what happened in this particular case was disastrous. The auctioneers figured out what was going on. And then in a move that I have not seen before or since, he decided to stop the game and change the rules midstream. So he told this woman she could only play 3 times. And she was particularly lubed up and she caused a scene.
Oh, no. For some reason in my head, I started worrying that somebody put their hands on someone else's tail.
I'm sure that happens too, and people get slapped. But this is more about how the fundraising was conducted and how it went astray. And fundraising auctions really, when you first go to them, when you go to your first one, you think, oh, this isn't that complicated a thing. This is a kind of a thing that I could do. I could throw a party like this. And the answer is absolutely you can, but it does behoove you to learn a little bit about how they work first. So
Yeah. Or think through to the bitter end of what the bad scenario could possibly be.
absolutely understand the way these things generally go there. And that's why I say this is such a niche interest that AI is probably going to be several years behind where it is when it tells us how to make a good cup of coffee.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I'm loving those fun ideas, and I can see that you are full of options that really can help us take our events to the next level, because I do feel
Absolutely.
as we get into a rut. And so I'm loving our visit. I'm so glad we got to talk about those two fun ideas. I would imagine that you must have a wonderful history. Tell us what your first job was.
My first job was, if we go way back, my first job was washing dishes at a summer camp. But my first interesting job was after I graduated from college, I went to work in book publishing, which you might be able to figure out in
Can
the
tell
background
you're-
there. Yeah.
You had quite the library there.
Yeah. And sadly, that's about, I don't know, 10% of it. I went to work in New York for Viking Penguin, now the Penguin Group. It's been through many changes. And I started out my career. I wanted to be an editor. I wanted to be a book editor. I wanted to edit the great American novel. And I got to a point where I did get far enough in that career where I did edit some books myself and get them out on the market and things that I was responsible for. And that was wonderful. And then life takes its twists and turns. And I got seduced into the idea, this is back in the early 90s, got seduced into the idea that reading was going to migrate from paper to screens. This is long before the Kindle. Went to work for a company that tried to do what Amazon eventually did with the Kindle, failed. But that led me into the tech world. And the tech world is where I've stayed ever since. I've been enamored of that. And although I am not a coder, I'm not a programmer, I'm not an engineer, I know how to talk to them. And I like talking to them. They're great people. So I can hang out with them and we can do amazing things together, which is where we get right back around to the first question you asked there about our partnership there. When I'm the PTA guy, I wound up getting introduced to a couple of guys who were working for their wives, who were the PTA presidents at their schools. They were a couple of geeks in the basement, and we hit it off like crazy. And we started a company, and now we're helping many organizations raise hundreds of millions of dollars. I couldn't be happier about it.
Oh my gosh, it must be so rewarding. I can just imagine. And
It's good karmic repair for everything else I've done in my life. I'm making up for it.
there you go. I just think it's fascinating that you stated that your two partners were working for their wives, because I think that support, that story happens all the time. And what a great thing that came of their need.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. And what's your doggy's name? I see your puppy back there.
Yeah, that's Omar. Omar, good boy.
Oh,
And there's another one in the other part of the house named Pepper.
oh, very
He's that. But he tends to hang out here with me during all of my sales calls and demos. So most of my customer base has seen Omar before.
He enjoys the library. I can see that.
He does.
Okay, so tell me something that maybe other people do not know about you. This is the funniest answer. I ask this question of every one of my guests, and this is the funniest answer I have ever heard. So I hope you remember what you wrote.
I don't.
Oh,
Prompt
okay.
me.
So I'm going to prompt you. It has something to do with canned.
Canned?
Yes, you said you have recently gone crazy diving.
Oh, okay. That's what I would have said anyway. It's like there's a shelf over there in the other corner of the office there, 9 or 10 dozen tins of canned fish. I've become a complete sardine enthusiast. I'd eaten sardines all my life, but I didn't realize you could go artisanal on them.
Whoa.
You could go all Sunset Magazine and you could have high-end brands I had no idea, but it's out there.
And so what drove you to even care? A sardine's a sardine, but I can't imagine. I mean, did you go to a specialty restaurant and all of a sudden have a great one and you're like, oh, this is way better than the canned I eat?
I am a foodie. I am an absolute foodie in most of my life, and no, it didn't happen at a restaurant because I'm a very proud cook myself. I'm very egotistical about my abilities in the kitchen, and I spend a lot of time loving food. I just didn't realize that this wonderful, beautiful, cheap protein that's out there could do so much. It
That
could be
is
prepared in so many ways.
that is hysterical. So I thank you for that comical answer, and I'm glad to know that someone is interested in such a thing. I would not have thought so. So I've been educated.
There you go.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I would imagine we're going to go from fun to something probably a little bit more
Sure.
stressful for you and a little bit more topical. So I know that here locally, we have a local food bank. It's called Emergency Aid of Boulder City, that they are stressed. They are struggling. And that then, of course, puts pressure and stress on our community because they recently were notified that they would not be receiving some of their federal funding. Can you please share with us in 2025 the value of what it is that you are doing? Because I can imagine that you're seeing across the board some concern and some worry and a true need.
Oh, you're not wrong. First of all, we don't need to get political here, but it is an actual fact that since the beginning of the year, this administration has placed a large number of federal grants to nonprofit organizations under review and has revoked many of them. There has also been pressure on private foundations. Private foundations you would think would be the next in line to step up and start filling in the gap. But private foundations are scared right now. They're scared about funding things that would come across as the wrong priorities. They're scared about funding things that might rebound on them. They're basically afraid at this point. So they're not doing as much funding. They're not paying out as much as should be paid out. There have been a variety of changes to the charitable contribution laws over the last decade that have also tended to close the spout a little bit from some of the private foundations. Certainly things like donor advised funds, whereas they are a marvelous vehicle for donors, oftentimes are not such a marvelous vehicle for the charities who rely on the funds. When we come down to this, so given all of that's all the prologue, right? Given all of what I've just set up there, the first 10 months of 2025 have been stressful for just about everybody involved in the charitable nonprofit sector. From my point of view, I've got a perspective on this, which is that we've been long helping nonprofit organizations do a specific type of fundraising, event-based fundraising. And event-based fundraising, to put it mildly, is a redheaded stepchild amongst well-established non-school, non-church charities. If you're the American Red Cross, whatever, you might hold events, but only to really recognize your donors, not necessarily to really raise the money that you need to continue. They're seen as too much work for too little return. And I get that. That makes a certain amount of sense when you've got a level of fundraising talent within an organization that can accomplish things without putting on events. Events are a lot of work, so you throw those overboard.
Right.
However, in a time like this, the events may be your most reliable source of fundraising. Because if you think about it, events are going to be drawing on your most committed local supporters, the ones who see the value of your organization, who sees what you do in the community, sees your impact. Those people are much more likely to bring nuance to the discussion about what it is they want to fund. And they are much more likely to fund things that are close at home during times of economic uncertainty. We're not in a recession right now, but what we know is that during recessions, the charitable fundraising never stops, but it gets closer to the heart.
Right.
I might not in a rough year donate as much to a national program, to the American Cancer Society, which I do donate to since I have cancer, but whatever, it's in remission. I'd be less likely to make that donation, than I would to be to my kid's school.
Absolutely.
Because I see the cracks on the playground and I know that needs to be fixed. And I can talk to the people who are going to be involved in the project and I can fund them. So during a time when there's so much stress upstream on funding sources, any organizations that have thrown events overboard probably should reconsider, probably should consider whether or not there's room to bring them back, whether or not this is a tactic that will help fill in the gaps. The dirty little secret, of course, at the end of the day is that events are not going to be able to make up for the loss of enormous federal grants. If you're getting several $1 million a year from the federal government, you're not going to make that up at an auction. But maybe it allows you to retain one staff member. Maybe it allows you to keep the doors open another 6 months. And so events at this point, I think, are showing their superpower in the fundraising world, because we're still out there plugging along, raising money for things that need to be done. And so far, there hasn't been any reason for us to consider doing things any other way. So let's get out there and raise money and keep the food bank open. Please give them my number. I'd love to work with them. I work with a lot of food banks and a lot of communities here. They tend to be organizations that can run effective fundraising events because they tend to be in a community where they can draw on a number of people who know their work and care about it.
You are so right in your statement that during times like this, it does draw closer to the heart. I love that statement because it is what makes it's the heartbeat of the community, or some of these local nonprofits that are supportive of your local area. And yes, you are right. They're the cancer organizations, the heart associations, the diabetes associations, all very valuable because they're doing some big projects, working on some big solutions.
Things that only can be tackled at that level.
Exactly. But I'm very grateful that my world operates around the center of that part of that community. Thank you for that statement. That was great. I would imagine that you probably, with that library behind you and with your background, you're probably reading 15 books at a time. But tell me what book you might be reading right now.
What am I reading right now that I want to tell you about? Okay, I'm going to grab a book. Hang on.
Okay.
This is American Sky by Carolyn Dasher. It's a novel about female pilots during World War II. And it's an outstanding historical novel that I'm really loving here. And so, yeah, this would definitely be one. I had it in the display there, the display section of my background there, because I like having people ask me about what I'm reading. So
I think that's fascinating. I was going to say, you went right to it, grabbed it, you knew exactly where it was. So that is amazing. And that would be something I would have a lot of interest in. My mom here in Boulder City, she was the youngest female solo pilot in the state of Nevada and still holds that record. Flying and being a pilot, that means a lot to me. So I'm going to pick that.
American Sky, Carolyn Dasher is the author.
That is
go buy a book for her and buy a book for yourself.
Yep, I love it. Thank you very much. So I would imagine that in your great life, you probably are still living lessons that your parents once taught you. Is there a lesson you'd like to share that you still use today?
No, it's much more of a holistic thing. My mom did pass away a few years ago. She raised me solo. My dad died when I was a young child. And my mom raised me to be kind. My mom and I didn't always agree on everything. And my mom was known for a heavily political person.
Oh.
But she was one of the kindest, most gentlest people when talking to others that there ever was. And it is truly the through line that connects everything that I've ever been interested in. I want to improve people's lives. I want people to live a better life.
I would imagine that from that, you also realize that in whether it's a political conversation, much like it sounded like she had many of, having that calm tone and having a civil discussion, you learn so much more from the other point of view, as well as being able to share your point of view, because you're not yelling it, shouting it, and then you live it. And I think that's pretty amazing. She was probably a wonderful woman. I'm glad that she raised such a great man. Is there anything else about the auctions that you talk about? One thing we didn't touch on that I still have some interest in is the digital side of this. So we know events, and another statement you said, events are now showing their superpower with the way that 2025 looks. Yes, they have a superpower, but I would imagine that you guys have developed a niche also for an online version that could be very beneficial. And it sounds like people could implement tomorrow. They don't have to do
Oh, yeah.
the 6-month planning process.
Sure. The easiest way to get a fundraiser started right now, if you've got, say, one person to do it and 3 months to get it done, the easiest thing to do is an online auction. And they're relatively quick and easy to set up. If you're not going to be selling tickets, if you're not going to be inviting people into a room, if you're not going to have to feed them, this is a much easier event to put out or to put on. And it's very easy to set it up within about, I don't know, you get the basic platform set up within a couple of hours, and then you're just adding items until you're ready to launch, and then you go. Really easy to do. There is a variation on this type of event. There are many variations on this. The problem with doing something completely online and asynchronous, like an online silent auction where it may take place over a week rather than an hour. The problem with that is that they have a ceiling on how much you're going to raise. They absolutely do. You can raise $25,000 and be happy about it, but you're not going to raise $200,000 that way. If you want to raise $200,000, you really need to get people into a room together so you can conduct what is called a special appeal, or a paddle raise, or a fund to need, or a fund to cause, things like that. Those are the moments when big dollar fundraising is really concentrated. So the hybrids are things like, let's get the bidding started ahead of time online and then finish it at the event. Or we had to do this a few years ago during the pandemic. What if you could put on an event online? What if it wasn't asynchronous? It wasn't going to take a week. It was going to be confined to an hour. And everybody was interacting in real time with their home computer together. What if we all had a big Zoom meeting, but we bid on things? And so we developed that platform. We developed a very specialized version of Zoom that accommodated real-time bidding and payment processing and collecting and things like that. Those were technologically amazing. And they have a great use case for small nonprofits with national reach.
Oh.
I'll give you an example. There are many groups we work with that are dedicated to researching and eradicating rare diseases. One of them was the Tuberous Sclerosis Alliance. Wouldn't blame you if you'd never heard of them. It's a very rare disease. They've got one office and one place where they coordinate their programs to help stimulate research, et cetera. They're based in one city, but their supporter base and their base of stakeholders is nationwide. Okay. It's very diffused. There's not a lot of them in any one place. There's just a lot of them all over the place. Okay. And these virtual live auctions can bring together a stakeholder base like that. And it tends to raise money. You can raise money doing these. I hesitate to say that they work because they're nowhere near as much fun for the guests. And I don't think that they necessarily work as well to cultivate donors, which is a whole thing that we haven't even talked about yet. But they don't work as well in that front than an in-person event does. But they can be effective money makers. And God forbid we ever have another pandemic again and get stuck in our houses. We got the tools to keep going on something like that.
I love that. I'm glad to know that was an experience. And don't you find it fascinating that a little bit of a silver lining came out of the pandemic and we all had so much fear, but yet we are utilizing Zoom and Teams and Meet and all of these different things now that really weren't on my radar. And so very grateful that we have these tools that have come from this as well as your online version. You mentioned donor cultivation. I think we should probably talk about that because that's so important, and it's the lasting impact, right? That's the follow-up and the thank you that needs to be done after, although the last confetti is picked up, we still need to create those relations and maintain those relations.
One of the beautiful things about a fundraising auction is that they really do obey the 80-20 rule. Actually, it's probably more like 90-10, where you're going to raise 90% of your money from 10% of your audience. Especially when we're dealing with things like a special appeal and biddable live auction items, you know that you're going to have a core group of usual suspects who have fat wallets in the room, and they're going to be at a certain point in their lives, have to be in order to have accumulated the fat wallet. And these are donors that you value and you've got. And these are donors that are your primary and your core donors. Who's the other 90%? Who are the other people out in the audience? You have to have an audience because for two reasons, really. One, you need applause.
That's right.
You absolutely need applause. For those fat cats that are swinging around their fat wallets, they're doing it because they need the ego gratification.
Right.
So let's give it to them. We want to sell tickets to a bunch of people who are going to come and cheer them on. The second thing is that you can get smaller donations from those people. You can excite them about your mission and your organization, and you can consider them baby donors that you're going to enter into your pipeline, enter into your funnel, and you're going to bring them along. You're going to introduce them to other fundraising programs that you do, but you're always going to keep in mind that these are people that came to you from a party. And for the first couple of years, the party's probably going to continue to be important to them. So bring them along at your party. Use it as a way to cultivate, bring them along year after year. Eventually, they'll buy a seat at the VIP table, or they'll buy a table themselves and bring their friends along to applaud for them. And there you go. You're cultivating donors. You're bringing them along all the way.
I love that. And recognizing them for whatever it is that I know many of the guests that get invited to some of our larger galas here, they are very grateful that they've been invited because they do believe in the cause and they do want to be a part of it, but they also want to be educated on a little bit more of the need and how it was used last year. And for the most part in those galas, they talk about those kinds of things too, right? So that donor cultivation is happening in multi-levels at those events.
Absolutely. And those kinds of success stories are a critical element of the communication plan or the entertainment plan at your event. Your auctioneer is going to need to know all of those things, et cetera. They help drive fundraising this year as well. And let's not downplay another element here. The people that care enough to be your big donors, the ones that are at the tops of your pipeline, the ones who are sitting at the VIP table, it is important to them to keep an eye on you, absolutely, and what you're doing with their money. It is important for them to serve a role as cultivars of your younger guests or your guests who are not as involved in the organization yet. There's a role for them to play to help bring those along. And then they're also going to want to be visually identified with a cause that they care deeply about. All of us do.
Right.
We all want the world to know that we care about certain problems enough to put our own effort into them. Because that's a way of persuading other people to care about the things that we care about.
Yeah, you're right. You don't always think about that, but you are right. We do want to be identified with positive things that are what we truly believe in.
And so we can provide visibility to these big donors who are really committed by celebrating them at the gala, celebrating their stewardship there, at the same time that we're getting them, at the same time we're framing this as this is the pathway we want all of you in the room to walk down. We want all of you to be sitting in this seat someday.
And with some of the other programming that you help us plan, it still allows that baby donor to participate and
absolutely
come along and be mentored by the fat wallet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I guess there might be assigning labels, but technically
I'm a fundraiser here. I tend to be a little cold-eyed about it sometimes. Sorry about that.
No, you shouldn't be sorry. I find it the best way to identify because I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly who those people are. They're resonating in my mind, and there's a reason they got the invite, and there's a reason why we're trying to bring this next generation into the light of what it looks like to be part of something bigger and better than themselves, to, much like your Rotary program, to make sure that they see the cause, that they understand the purpose, and they give service and provide that service as they age into that same place at some point in time.
Absolutely. That's
Very
the goal.
good. I had so enjoyed our conversation and getting to know you better, Roger, and understanding schoolauction.net. Is there anything else you would like us to know a little bit more?
We've talked about a wide range of things here today. I don't know that I know anything else. I think I've run out of all of the wisdom that I have.
Okay, great.
No, but at the end of the day, I think one of the key aha moments that you had during this moment is one that I'd like to undermine, which is that, we call it schoolauction.net, but it's not just for schools. It's for churches and other faith communities. It's for community centers. It's for food banks. It's for anybody that is working to build their community, preserve their operations in the community, and do good. So let's go out there and do good together.
I love it. I want to do good. And thank you so much for this time. And we'll make sure that all this information and links are included in the show notes. So if people have more questions, want to get a hold of you, they'll have that option. And again, thank you very much. Thank you, Omar, for making an appearance. And we sure appreciate you and your great mind. Thank you for doing so good.
Jill, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for the work that you're doing here to help get ideas like this out to the people who need them.
You bet. Happy to do it. Have a great day.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
This episode of the Best Damn Podcast has been a production of the Boulder City Chamber of Commerce. Please check out all the links and social media handles on our website as well at bouldercitychamber.com. You can find the Best Damn Podcast on all your favorite podcast directories. Like us and share on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Until next time, discover, explore, and unwind in Boulder City.